Okay, so we're going to start with the two main outer pieces. So you've cut two of these in your chosen fabric, and on the back you're going to interface with the medium, the lighter weight interfacing that covers the entire of the back, and then with the heavy weight you're going to iron that on top. So do that with both sides. So on the back you've got the medium and the heavy weight. The medium goes on first. Then you've cut out your two lining pieces, and then you have got the little rectangle for the zip tab and your collar for the pop-up pencil case. So you're going to do this with the fold line on the side so that your fabric, if it's directional, is facing upwards. So then when it's folded out, it's like so. And then you're going to stick the next piece of medium interfacing all the way across the whole of the back, but obviously there's a 1 centimetre gap running all the way around. Grab your tab. We're going to fold in the two shorter edges and then fold in half again, marking a crease in the middle with your fingers. And once you open that out, you're going to grab the closed end of your zip and put the end of the zip up to that crease in the middle. Fold in the two side edges and give them a finger press. So once you've done one, I'd secure it with a clip. There you go. And fold in the other side. So all the raw edges are now enclosed. And again, you're going to secure that with a clip or a pin. And then fold over the top of the tab, making sure it's all nice and neat. It's nice and square on the corners. And fold that over, and you can see you are... There you go, fold it over, and as you can see you're hiding the end of the zip, and as this part of the zip is going to be exposed on the pop-up pencil case, it's nice that it's looking pretty. Top stitch that in place all around the edge. Okay, so now you've prepared your zip, you're going to attach it to the outer pieces. So you're going to put the right sides of the zip to the right side of the outer edge. So open it up a little bit first and then line up the raw edge of the right side of the zip to the right side of the outer, and then you're going to sandwich that in between the lining fabric. So you're covering the metal bit of the zip, making sure that metal bit isn't where you're going to be sewing because you don't want any broken needles. So just make sure that metal bit of the zip isn't on the 1 centimetre mark. But once you've lined up all those raw edges, you've got the teeth of the zip facing down onto the main fabric, and then on top of that you've got the lining fabric face down. So all the right sides are touching. Clip or pin those in place, and then once you've lined all those raw edges up nice and neatly, you're going to go over to your sewing machine and you're going to sew that in place using a zip foot, and sew a line of stitching halfway between the edge of the fabric and the teeth of the zip. But you're going to stop 2 centimetres before the end. Okay, so here you go, I've done that. I've stopped 2 centimetres before the end, and I'm now going to tuck the zip in so it's tucked out the way, and I'm now going to continue sewing. So just make sure that's all lined up again. So now that zip's tucked out of the way, I'm going to sew those last 2 centimetres. Okay, so there you go, tucked out of the way, reposition. Remember to do a back stitch so nothing comes unthreaded later on when you're using your pencil case. So once that's sewn into place, as you can see, you've got your zip is sort of hanging out 2 centimetres off the edge. And that's one side of the zip done. So we now need to do the same with the other side. So with the right side of the zip facing up, you're going to place your outer fabric on top. And then on the other side, as we did before, you're going to get the lining piece of fabric. There you go, as you can see, I'm just lining that all up so it's all going to match. And then you grab your lining fabric and you're going to sandwich the zip in place with your lining fabric right sides together with your outer fabric. There you go. So that's a zip sandwich, all raw edges aligned. I'm going to clip those into place. Clips are really handy to use if you've got them for things like this. But if you don't, you can just use pins. But I do recommend giving clips a go if you haven't before. And again, as you did before, so all the way along, stopping 2 centimetres from the end, which is the zip pull end, and back stitching. And when you've done that, you're going to do exactly as you did before. You're going to tuck in the edge and close up that 2 centimetres zip. Okay, so we're going to open it up so that your 2 outer pieces are now facing each other. And you can see here, I'm just lining up the sides. So just make sure everything is just lining up nice and neatly. You've got your cutout corners matching. You've got the top matching up near the zip. And just pop a couple of clips. And we're going to be leaving those cutout corners open. So just make sure that you've clipped the sides and the bottom. As you can see, at this point, you can see I've left the zip hanging out. When I came on to sew it, I remembered that the zip has got to be tucked in. So at this point, tuck your zip inside so it's tucked out of the way, and then clip the lining pieces together. Right, so as you can see, they're right sides together, and I'm clipping those together. We're going to be leaving a gap on one edge of the lining piece. So as you can see, I've put a couple of pins there, clips there to remind me that the gap is going to be left. And we're going to sew all the way across one long edge with the zip tucked in, across the short edge and the other short edge, and across that bottom edge. But remember, you're going to leave a gap. Be generous on the gap you leave, because you'll notice when I turn it through a little later on, it can be a bit fiddly. Okay, so I've sewn it all together, and there's my gap. Tiny gap. Should have been bigger. Okay, so now we're going to pull out those cutout corners, and we're going to square the bottom of the bag off by aligning the 2 seams together and sewing a diagonal row of sewing. So here it is again. Pull out those cutout corners, if you can get hold of them. There you go. Pull out the cutout corners, and then you've got the 2 seams aligned, and that's creating a nice flat edge. And you're going to use this 1 centimetre seam allowance and sew across the corner. Do that for all 4 corners, and then hey presto, there you go. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to trim the seam allowances off the bottom, because with that heavy interfacing it becomes quite bulky. So I'm just going to trim that off, and then here we go. This is where we have to turn everything through your gap in the lining. Where is it? There's my teeny tiny gap. Now, if you don't think you've got a big enough gap at this point, get your seam ripper, open it up, because trust me, you're going to need a bigger gap. Now, if your hands are not very strong, then I do recommend asking somebody with a stronger pair of hands to help you turn this through, because that interfacing is quite tough. It can be done. I am really cursing this at this point. There you go. I'm going to speed it up for you. I was thinking, shan't I make the hole bigger? I thought, no, I've started now, I'll just keep going. No, should have made that hole bigger. But I'm just opening up the zip a little bit so I can get it all turned through. Obviously, it's going to take you a lot longer than my sped up version. But once it's all turned through, you'll find your lining is lying nice and neatly inside your outer bag, and it's all starting to take shape. So once you've pushed it all through, get your zip and just pop it through that little hole on the end, because it's been tucked in, so we want it poking out. So there's a little gap there, you can just pull it through. There you go, and close it up. Now you might want to spend a little bit of time just shaping it out. You're just pulling out the bottom corners so it's nice flat bottom, because it is going to be standing up your pencil case. But there you go, ta-da! That's the first bit done. Okay, so we've got the cuff piece. You're going to fold under the two long edges by 1 centimetre, so basically up to the edge of the interfacing. Press it with an iron and then fold it back out again. Okay, so now you're going to fold it right sides together so that the two short edges are now meeting. And we are going, well, first of all, make sure you're aligning those raw edges, and we're going to sew across that 1 centimetre gap there. So 1 centimetre seam allowance, which is basically right up to the edge of the interfacing. And as you can see, because we've previously folded with an iron that 1 centimetre of the long edges, you can now fold it over. So you've got your long edges folded over, and we're going to turn it inside out. Well, basically we're going to turn it in half so that the wrong sides are now facing, and you're creating the cuff. So once you've done this, you're going to have a folded edge and two edges that we're going to align together that are open. So you just want to spend a little bit of time making sure it's folded in half equally, and that your one side you've got a seam, so you're able to align the seam, and just make sure there's no kinks in that fold. You're pulling it out nice and flat and far. There we go. As you can see, I've got those edges turned under by 1 centimetre, which was pre-pressed, and that's pretty much there. Once you've done that, go grab your pieces of, I can't remember what it's called, it's left, but those two pieces, 6 centimetres each, fold them in half and tuck one in one side where the seam is. So just tuck it in about 1 centimetre, maybe just less, well, probably 1 centimetre. Clip or pin it in place. You could probably use a pin at this point, but I only had clips available to me, so I just sort of clip it from the side. But once you've clipped one in place, so it's poking out the top, then directly opposite, so just find the other half, so pull it tight so you've got the opposite half, and then you're going to pop the other bit of the that's it, the twill tape. You're going to pop that in that side. There you go, just secure that in place, because once you've done that, you're going to top stitch all the way around the edge, just close to the edge, a few millimetres away from the edge. Obviously use plenty of pins and clips just to make sure all those raw edges are smoothed out, they're aligned, because we're going to close that those open folds up. Okay, so all the way around the circumference. I went backwards and forwards over the twill tape just to make sure it was secure, so you might just want to do that. Okay, so once you've top stitched that in place, that should be nice and secure. Just make sure if it's directional fabric, it's the right way out, so that your bees or whatever fabric it is are facing the right way up, so that the tape is down on the bottom, and you've got the folded edge, the original folded edge. You're going to align that up with your zip. So I'm starting with the seam and I'm aligning that up with the end of the zip. And we're going to do that all the way around the circumference of the opening of the case. And we're just going to pop some clips. And as you can see, the little twill tape tags are just down the bottom there. So it's the original folded edge that we're aligning with the zip. Pop a few clips in. This is just positioning it in place before we get to the sewing machine. So the more prep you can do, the more accurate your sewing will be. Okay, I think we're nearly there. Just one more clip. There you go. So I've just got the teeth of the zip exposed, but I'm going to be sewing obviously a few millimetres away from the teeth of the zip. There we go. There's my last clip. So I'm ready to sew. Now, when you go to your sewing machines for the next step, I used a zip foot. It just makes it a bit more accurate when getting through. And I took the drawer off my sewing machine so I could use the arm of the sewing machine to pop my case over. Excuse my big hand in the way. So I start with a back stitch, and just a couple of millimetres from the edge of that folded edge, I'm going to sew all the way around. When using clips, it does get a bit annoying actually, they keep catching underneath, so I just keep having to adjust it. There's my hand, get it out of the way. There we go. So we're going to sew that in place, top stitch in place, all the way around the top circumference. Okay, so when you get to that zip, you just need to, there you go, I've just lifted my presser foot. My needle's in the down position, so it's not going to move anywhere. And I'm just going to readjust that so that it's nice and flat with the edge of the cuff. There we go. Just move the zip out the way. So I'm still sewing, just getting, oh, there you go. The zip pull is in the way. So I'm just opening the zip up so I can get round. Perfect. Okay, so keep sewing. Nearly there. So just spend some time. Remember, if your needle's in the down position, you can always lift your presser foot up just to reposition your zip and making sure everything's laying where you want it to. And then when you get to, I started it at the seam, so I'm going to end at the seam. It's quite bulky there, so you might just need to tug it through your machine a little bit. There we go. Do a little back stitch. Oh God, you can see the paws on my hands. Cut your threads. There you go. Brilliant. So I've sewn that in place. I've used a top stitch. Now you're going to go around the circumference again, but a centimetre away from your first line of stitching. So you might want to start at the seam and end at the seam again. Where's my seam? Right, I'm just going to find that. There it is. So I'm just aligning it, that second row of stitching, a centimetre away from the top stitching. Always a back stitch. Keeps everything nice and secure. And there's no clips now to hold me up. I can just get sewing. Nice and quick. This is not sped up, just super speedy. There we go, back stitch. Ta-da! And there we have it, your completed pop-up pencil case. Now I'm going to pop some pencils in just for demonstration purposes. There we go, just straight out of my pencil case into another one. I'm going to gift this to my auntie because she loves bumblebees and she does painting. So I'm going to gift it to her for Christmas so she can put her paintbrushes in. And then when she's painting, she can just pull down the cuff of the pencil case and she's got access to all of her brushes and any other bits and bobs. You don't have to use this as a pencil case, you can use it as a makeup bag. I hope you enjoyed this project. As you can tell from the boxes, we do try to introduce new projects and techniques each month. Sometimes the projects aren't to taste, but that's the beauty of sewing. You can gift, you can move things about, and you can choose how you wish to use your project that you've made. But all in all, it's all about learning new skills. Thanks very much and see you next month.